With Alethea Graphic Design, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use your digital background. These are very easy to use, and the steps I'm going to show you today are quick and simple techniques that you can composite your images into your background. I am going to let you know right now that I will be working with stock photos. That's just It's easier for me to do that because I can search through stock photos and find images that suit the background. Um, I will tell you that if you are going to use a background, you want to make sure that you look through your images and pick ones that you know are going to suit it, or you take photos with that background in mind. So that way you can go ahead and get them set up to match. Now they don't have to match exactly, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about there. So really quick, I'm going to show you this first one here, which I had a question about how to use this. I'm going to go ahead and turn off all these layers so you can see what it looks like beforehand. I'm going to do the same with this one and show you what it looks like beforehand. Now I've already gone in and done some editing because I wanted to make sure that the steps that I took were very simple. I'm not going to dive too deep into them because then this would be a very long tutorial and nobody wants to sit around listening to me talk for half an hour or more. So I'm just going to go through and show you these simple techniques that I did. So I'm going to start with the boat. I'm going to go ahead and show you the stock photo that I used for this one. I used this. So I found this image and I thought, oh, this is perfect. So the lighting is different, as you can see, and that's why I wanted to show you this. She is looking through a telescope, and I thought, well, she's in this perfect position to be looking out across the water on the boat. Now, you can also, on this one right here, you could have a photo of a family or a kid or whatever subject you want sitting down. You can have them sitting in a chair even with their hand on something to look like they're holding onto the side of the boat. You can set this up in a studio, you can set this up outside, and you can actually position your person to fit inside that boat quite nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I started off with the background like this. And then what I did, and I've made a lot of copies of stuff so that you can kind of see where I was going. I like to make sure that I have a copy of everything. So if I mess up, I don't have to backtrack too much. So I'm going to go ahead so don't pay any attention to this stuff, okay? These are all the different copies that I made, so I made sure that I could do this efficiently. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to turn off some of these layers so you can see what I was working with. Okay, so I'm going to disable this layer mask. So you can kind of see. All right, so I had her, she was standing, and I had to go in and I had to make sure that I masked off all the edges and such. So let me go ahead and reactivate that. So as you can see, I masked off all the extra stuff, and now this is not going to be perfect, obviously. I wanted to save time, so this is not perfect, but you can see I just masked off everything I didn't want. Now, the other thing I did is I went and I had selected her, and I made sure that layer was selected, and I went up to image and adjustments, and I adjusted the levels and the curves. So I could see from the original that she was very bright. She's very blue here as well. And if I go back and show you here, you can see how bright she is. So I actually use levels to darken her up a little bit. I can actually show you that really quick. You just go up to image, adjustments, levels. And I had pulled this down, this middle piece down. See how that darkens her? Now I have already done this, so I'm not going to do it again, but just so you can see, it darkens her up a little bit. I'm going to hit cancel. Okay, so then I went up to the image, and again, I went and hit curves. Now, the reason why I did this is because this is a slightly more foggy, misty atmosphere. So I dragged down my blacks and then I brought this part up just a little bit just to kind of mat her out a little bit. And now I've already done that again, so I'm not going to do it again. So that's all I did there to get her to match as close as possible. All right. So then I got me a standard telescope and smacked that bad boy in there. I did have to find one when you're compositing. You have to find images. If you have a telescope, you want to take a picture of it at the angle that you would want to have it in your image. So I found one that was the right angle, and then I went in and I clipped a new layer. So let me go here. Here is the telescope. And then I created a new layer. So if you look at the bottom right hand side of my screen, I clicked on new layer and that created this layer right here if you look at the little hand. And once I did that, I colored on top of it. I set the layer to color, as you can see here, still on the right hand side of my screen. I set that layer to color and I just colored over the image. So let me see if I can disable my layer mask. As you can see, I colored over the whole thing and I just masked it off that little black area there. So then I went in and I got a texture and I put the texture on top just to kind of add a little depth to it. You don't have to do that, but that's just what I did. So then I made a copy of this, and when I did that, I will show you. Let me turn this off. I'll turn that back on, sorry. I'm still going inside here. I had made a copy of it, so that's why you can see I made a copy up here. Okay, so now the next thing that I ran into, I have grouped all those together. So let me turn that back on so you can see. So once again, I added the little girl. I masked off the areas that I didn't want. I added the telescope, added the color, added the texture, okay? I grouped those together. That way I could apply the color to the whole group. So then what I did is I simply added a new layer, bottom right hand corner here, clipped it, and the way you do the clipping, you right click on that and then you just hit see release clipping mask. It makes everything pink then. So then create clipping mask and it clips it to your selection. So all I did there is, again, I made it to color, set it to color, I grabbed one of the pinks out of the image itself. I lowered the opacity a little bit so that it does look like the correct color is shining on her face, because without it, you've got this very blue color going on, and there are multiple ways you could do this. You could do a hue saturation layer, you could do a color balance layer, but this was just the quick and dirty, easy way to do it. So then, this is the girl. Okay, so I had made a copy of everything, which I'm going to see if I can turn this off. I made a copy of everything and I drug it up here so I would have it in case once I got through doing all this stuff, I messed something up. So like I said, I make a copy of everything. So then I need to make my reflection. So let me go ahead and zoom out a little bit, because unless she's a ghost, she's going to reflect in the water. So all I did there, let's see, I'm not going to do the comet yet. Let's move those up. Okay, so all I did there was I duplicated her. So let me see if I have it up here. Okay, so all I did there was I made a duplicate of her. So let me go ahead and show you what I did there. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to actually group these into a grouping so that I can show you how I duplicated her. Okay, so here's my little thing. Now watch, I'm doing Command J. I'm making, I am making a copy because I don't want to mess anything up, especially if you're going to do this. So, excuse me. So here is my grouping. I'm going to turn it into a smart object. Okay, because I'm happy with it. I like it. I masked everything off. I like the color, so I'm good to go. Okay, so I needed to make sure that she had a reflection in the water, and all I did there, and you'll see that I did that here, so I'm going to turn this off. I grouped it all together. I turned it into a smart object. Now I'm going to open this back up again. So here she is as a smart object, okay? And all I had done is I had grabbed her, I made a copy, and then I flipped it. So this is how I did that. So there she is. Here's that smart object that we made. I did Command J. I then did Command T. And then I went up to Edit, Transform, Flip Vertical. And now she is upside down. Now, excuse my Photoshop because it's having fun right now. So then I just went in. It's all about positioning. You're not going to see her whole body sticking out of the water. So I kind of like moved her down a little bit. I hit OK. And then all I did after that was I masked it off, and then I'm going to show you the rest of it. So let me make this bigger. I just masked all this off because I knew you can't see her whole body sticking out of the water. Okay. So I did that. So there's that. All right. That's the kind of the rough and dirty. All right, so I had flipped her over. I had masked off the areas that I felt like would or would not be showing. And I actually can go in there and move her down just a little bit more because I don't feel like you would see her whole body like that. And please excuse my Photoshop. Apparently one of my kids has over 500 gigabytes of stuff on their user profile. So I will be going through that later today and deleting some of that. And I don't know why they decided to do that. Okay, so I masked this off. Now, if you're wondering how I got her to do this, it wasn't so much reducing the opacity. I actually added a color overlay. So all I did was I grabbed this, made sure she was selected, the main one. If you look over here on the right hand side, you can see it's selected. I went down to FX and I went to color overlay. That's all I did. So I'm going to double click that. And I set it to a gray because I felt like that would most match. This has like kind of a bluish gray hue to it. So I picked a gray, and you just mess with the opacity. So I felt like, okay, well, when I go and research people's reflections in water, they're not always super clear unless the water is like really, 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 really still. And while it is, it's kind of later in the day. So I don't feel like it would be super like in focus. So then turning that off. All right. So that's how I did that. I then blurred it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this one off so you can see. Now you can see in this one, I had her a little bit further down in the boat. I blurred her a little bit. So then what I did is I went down to my background and I selected my background and I just cut out using my lasso tool here. That's up here at the top left hand corner. And I just cut out a piece of the water. And there's the water texture. Now I did that and I reduced the opacity down to about 25% just to kind of add back a little bit of the water texture despite the fact that the water is very, very calm. So that's all I did there. Now, I was pretty happy with this, but then I wanted to add a little bit more whimsy. And my free comet overlays, I added the blue comet in the sky to give her something to be looking at. And then I had to make the reflection again. All I did was made a copy of it. I went up to Edit, went to Transform, and Flip Vertical. That's all I did. And then I reduced the opacity. So that's how I was able to edit that composite. Now you could go in and add even more stuff in here. You could run an action on it. You could add more fog. There's just a plethora of things that you could do with this. So now I'm going to go into the lavender fields. These were a little easier because I didn't have to add so much to it, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what I did there. So that one, I used this stock image. And I thought, okay, this is perfect. It's done at the later time of the day. I like the way she's standing. So if you were to shoot for this lavender field, that's kind of what you're going to want to do, depending on where in the field you would want your subject standing. So if you have some shots like this that are done a little later in the day, which most photographers do shoot later in the day, it's going to be perfect. So all I did is I cut her out. I went to select subject because she's very much in focus here. And I just cut her out like this. And then I dragged her over. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over here, and here's how I dragged her over. Now, I had to go in and I had to make some edits. So this is what she was before, and this is what she is after. Okay, Reason being is I felt like the elbow looked like something sticking out of her head, and I didn't like that. So I took that out. I just added a mask and I took it out. So let me disable and turn this bottom one off. And now there, yeah. So that's all I did. So enable, turn it. There was hair sticking out here. I thought it looked like a spark or something. I got rid of that, and I also got rid of her elbow. And then I further went in. Let me turn this off, and I cleaned up around her hair. I cleaned all that up. So let me show you that. So let me turn this off, on. So that's the after. There's the before. I just cleaned up this little area here in her hair. Now, one of the issues that I kind of ran into is I noticed that the front of her hair was really bright. So what I did there is I darkened it up a bit. So how did I do that? Okay, all I did was I made sure I selected that layer, I zoomed in, I used my lasso tool, and I just cut out that piece of hair. So let me show you that. See, I just cut it out. Now, how did I change it to be from being really bright to being a lot darker? All I had to do is keep that section selected, this little layer right here. I went up to image, adjustments, and I went to brightness and contrast. That is all I did. And I lowered the brightness. So if I make it really dark, you can really see. So that's all I did. I just lowered it a little bit, and I looked and thought, okay, that looks pretty realistic. I'm going to hit cancel. And then I masked off any grit, like any little areas that were sticking out. So I masked that off. And then I had to make a new layer, put it right above her and her hair, not the darkened area, because if you put it above that and you clip it, it would have just clipped this. So I had to make sure that that new layer was above her. Okay. And I went in, and again, I hit the clipping, I clipped it. Okay, so if I release the clipping mask, you can kind of see. I took a color from the background, and then I set it to soft light this time because I wanted a little bit more depth, and I painted it over her hair to add a little bit more pink to go with the lighting in the background. Then I went in, and you can see here's the before, after, before, after. That's that before and after I cleaned everything up. So I thought, okay, everything looks good. And then if you want to add a little bit more depth, then you could add a shoot through, which I am working on some right now to put up in my shop. But you can add a shoot through. You could put dinosaurs in the background if you wanted to. You could add a pterodactyl coming down to eat her. I mean, you could really do a whole lot. If you wanted to put your subject off to the side, I would just recommend cutting out like a layer of the flowers so that you could overlay them on top. Just to give you an example, I'm going to go ahead, make sure my background is selected, and I would just go in and very carefully, just kind of like the ones that are more in focus, and just try to I'm just doing this quick and dirty here. I personally don't like watching tutorials that take 50 years. Okay, that's just not me. I just can't do that. So I try to make my stuff as quick as I can. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and just chop off a nice big section here. And I'm going to do Command J. And again, I'm grouping her together. I'm just going to group all that together. I'm going to drag it below. And then Command T. See? You could put her off to the side. And then all you would really need to do is just go in and kind of clean up around the flowers a little bit. So I hit OK. And I would add a layer mask, lower right hand side, add the layer mask, go in, zoom in. And then this is super zoomed, by the way. Okay. And then you would just go in and just mask off any dirty bits. I say dirty bits, but they're just a little jagged. So, and again, please excuse my computer. I had to set the performance down and all that stuff because, again, like I said, one of my kids decided to download a bunch of stuff onto my computer, and I don't know what 500 gigabytes you could possibly put on here. but I will find out soon. Okay. You're going to want to make it kind of believable. Flowers don't usually have, unless they have spikes. So you could just do that. You could lower the opacity a little bit of your brush and do it really slow. I'm just trying to show you really quickly. But you could put your subject off to the side too. So, and then have like a big giant T-Rex coming down the middle if you want to. But that is the end of my tutorial. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. You can message me on Etsy. You can message me on Facebook. You can email me at aletheagraphicdesign@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to help you the best way I can. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you have a wonderful day.